They have a combined 12 years in the National Football League. They combined for 65 career sacks, 232 tackles, 1 Pro Bowl selection, and 1 Employee of the Month award.
That's just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
It's Train and Grose on the All AZ Podcast Network.
Welcome in episode 72 of Train and Grose.
Yeah.
Bertrand Berry, Mike Grose, Sean Crespin. Thanks for joining us. Lots to get to.
Yeah.
Lots to get to. We're a couple of days removed from the Phoenix Suns being eliminated from the Western Conference playoffs. But before we get to that, as we do for the podcast, episode 72, we send a shout out to Dan Deerdorf.
Wow.
Number 72, 71 to 83 for the St. Louis Cardinals. And here's a cool thing. Dan Deerdorf was born in Canton, Ohio.
Wow.
Dan Deerdorf was enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1996.
Wow.
In his hometown of Canton, Ohio. How cool is that?
That is very cool because chances are he was probably already enshrined somehow from high school during his time there, because most times if you're a great player in the NFL, you probably had success along the way in high school, college, and so on and so forth. So it was probably his second time being honored in his hometown, which is really, really cool.
Dan Deerdorf played college football at the University of Michigan and just retired as their longtime color commentator on their radio broadcast.
Wow.
And for me, part of what Monday Night Football sounded like as a kid, and still in my head does, Frank and Al and Dan. To me, that when I was growing up, that was the booth. And so those were my Monday nights. So that's what Monday Night Football sounds like to me.
Have you ever met Dan Deerdorf?
I have
Yes, I
not.
have.
Around the facility?
Yes, I have.
Were you playing the night they put him in the Ring of Honor at the stadium? It was a
don't
night
remember.
game.
It had to been, if it was night game, if I was playing, I was in the locker room. So.
Yeah. I just didn't know, like, for context.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I'm going to look it up what year it was. I remember.
Was it in State Farm Stadium?
It was definitely at State Farm Stadium.
Well, I was definitely playing.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
We'll get the year, though.
For sure.
A good podcast host would have written that down before we started recording.
That's all right.
That's the difference. Podcast, you just work it out on the air. Just work it out.
We'll figure it out.
We'll come to now. You and I were talking before we started recording because we had a little extra time tonight. Number 72, also that was on the list and not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Ed Too Tall Jones.
What?
Ed Too Tall Jones
Famous
is not
cowboy.
in the
Yeah.
Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Ed Too Tall Jones is an icon in Texas as far as his time with the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, everybody remembers him as the guy that was forcing Joe Montana to make the throw that was later termed the catch. And for him, he obviously won a Super Bowl, won a championship with the Dallas Cowboys, and was part of a lot of great moments in Dallas Cowboy history. But there are some things that keep him from being in the Hall of Fame, Mike, and we talked about that before the show.
Yeah.
You brought up a few things that we knew as far as the inner circle of NFL players and stuff, like things that you can't do that will automatically keep you out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. One of them
Quit
the game.
the game.
Took 2 years off. Walked away. And to this day, if you ask him, he will say, I made the right decision. That was the best decision for me.
Hey, I mean, you have to steer your career however you want it to go, and everybody's journey is not going to look the same. Mine certainly doesn't look like most, and Ed Too Tall's doesn't look like most, but he's got the cool nickname and he's got the career to stand on, even though he had that one blemish on it.
Yeah, and he played in that era where it kind of broached, where professional football really wasn't on the minds of a lot of people, and he broached and came in the late 80s when the Cowboys were America's team, where they earned that.
That's right.
All right, real quickly before we jump into the Suns, Bob Lanier, NBA great for the Detroit Pistons and other teams, but for me, always a Detroit Piston.
Yep.
Passed away this past week.
Yep.
Number 16, and a couple of memories for me. I was never really old enough to watch and appreciate Bob Lanier playing for the Detroit Pistons when I was growing up. I was aware of him.
Yep.
Played with Dave Bing back in the day. Some really, really good teams, some iconic names in Detroit basketball history, but never got to watch and appreciate him.
Right.
So, when a man passes away, you get to review these things, see what people said about him. But in life, there was 3 things that I remember about Bob Lanier. There was a sporting goods store where I used to shop as a kid, and in the store, hanging from right behind the cash register, was one of his
shoes.
Nikes.
One of the biggest feet
ever.
22, I believe
22
it
or
was.
23.
Yeah.
and it was hanging back there. And as a kid growing up, everybody knew Bob Lanier because of that shoe.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two, fast forward, he lived here.
We went to a few tournaments with his daughter.
I was just going to say, that's number
Yes.
three. Number two, I was at a IHOP one day.
Oh, wow.
And Mr. Lanier was at the same IHOP I was.
He was getting some pancakes.
I was getting some pancakes. He was getting some pancakes.
Everybody's getting pancakes.
I grabbed my plate and I slid over. I said, mind if I join you? No, I didn't. But to see this guy that you revere.
Yeah. Larger than life, too. Big fella.
Big fella.
Yeah.
Eating his breakfast. I left him alone, but just gave him a
friendly guy.
very friendly guy. And then to your point, your daughter played club volleyball. My daughter played club volleyball.
That's right.
His daughter
Huge.
was a hell of a player.
Was it at Xavier when
She played for Xavier College
Yep.
Prep and then went to USC, and now she's playing professional volleyball in Italy. And if you get a chance, if you're interested, there's a video that she did for USA Volleyball talking about the impact her father had on her.
That's awesome.
She didn't play basketball because she wanted to chart her own path.
Yep.
But she learned lessons from her father. She
course
talked
she
to
did.
her father.
Of course she did.
She wore number 16 because of her father.
I mean, how dope is that?
And it was really touching to watch her do that. It was recorded last year during the pandemic because she did it by way of Zoom.
Named an ambassador of the NBA. Mike, you know how important of a title that is to be an ambassador of the game that you love so much. You know how much respect you have to have and how much you are thought of in a good way to be the quote unquote ambassador of the NBA.
Yeah.
Like that in itself tells you the type of man that Bob Lanier was, and he had a very full life, and getting to meet him at that tournament, Mike, just a super friendly guy, and nothing but respect for him, and my condolences to him and his family.
And you saw when you met him because that was late in his life. When you saw him at those tournaments, he would stay out in the car until it was ready to play because his legs were literally like playing in the NBA in the 70s, flying commercial, playing in these old nasty arenas that they played in, not having the physical trainers and things like that. You could tell he was an old man.
It took a toll on
before his time.
That's right.
And he'd walk in, sometimes he'd have a cane, but always there for his daughter.
And always in a great disposition.
Always.
Never saw him in a bad mood.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And
R.I.P. to the legend Bob Lanier.
Absolutely. All right, we put it off long enough. The Phoenix Suns, they were unceremoniously dumped Sunday afternoon in their own building by the Dallas Mavericks. And I told you this beforehand. You know, we do a podcast, or if you do a radio show, you try to have that hot take. Like, what's your hot take? How are you going to break this down? I'm like, man, you know, you're driving around and listen to the guy. And, it would have been a hell of a week to do sports talk radio in this town.
Yeah.
But for me, we were talking about it with guys at work. I said, this reminds me when you're growing up and you know this family on your block. And you're like, damn, they got everything. They won 64 games this year. They got all these fancy kids are going to Harvard and doing
best record by a mile in the NBA.
You know, the kids are going to be doctors and lawyers, and you know, you got, you know,
coach of the year, defensive player of the year, runner up.
And then you find out behind the scenes, like failed out of Harvard, got pregnant before she graduated high, whatever it is.
Yeah, big letdown.
Like it was a facade almost all year.
Fool's gold.
You saw
as you talked about.
That's right. You saw glimpses of it in the Pelican series, but hey, injuries. D Book had the hamstring. Okay,
and they won.
Can explain it, and they ultimately won.
They won.
So you worried about did Monty Williams get out coached by Willie Green? Maybe he did, but hey, we still won. D Book came back; he was healthy.
A lot of familiarity though between Willie Green and Monty Williams.
Yeah, and that goes a lot into that.
Yes, it is.
And then you jump up 2-0 on the Mavericks, and you know we talk about this in these series. When you go up 2-0, the other team's got to win 4 out of 5.
And got to come back and do it on your home floor. And
I think when we talked about it, both Miami and Phoenix were up 2-0 in their respective series. I said, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go, both of them. Now, Miami ultimately prevailed, and we'll get to the Eastern Conference later on in the podcast, but man, I don't know how you describe this, how you explain it away, whatever it is. It was an embarrassment if you're one of the Phoenix Suns, the fans, the disappointment. Of the fans walking out of the arena. If you're at a Game 7 in the Western Conference playoffs and people are heading for the exit when the horn goes off at the end of the third quarter.
Mike, there were people leaving at halftime.
Man.
That game was over at halftime. They had 27 points at half, Mike. Luka Doncic had 27 by himself at half.
Kenny Smith, and I love the guys on TNT. Kenny Smith said,
oh, they're great.
Suns need to get it down to 10, 12 points by the end of the third quarter to have a chance. I'm like, okay, all right, he knows what he's talking about.
No. It upped the ante.
It went up.
It went up.
It went the opposite way.
Mike, at one point they were down 46. 46 points.
46.
In a Game 7 on your home floor. Now, I understand that sometimes you have bad matchups, and I understand that sometimes you just don't have your A game. But to be in a Game 7 with everything that was on the line for the Phoenix Suns and everything that they accomplished, all the goodwill they had created here in the Valley, everybody had been talking about the Suns obviously coming off of a finals appearance last year, people thinking they're going to run it back to the finals, and they seem to be on the fast track to do that. And then they figured out, wait a minute, the Dallas Mavericks are a pretty damn good team.
Yeah, they are.
And that best player that they got on their team, he's one of the best players in all the NBA. A guy that's only 23 years old, Mike. And a guy that they could have had in the draft a few years ago when they took, oh, by the way, one DeAndre Ayton.
Who doesn't get a nickname anymore.
Who does not deserve a nickname. After that performance, he is DeAndre Ayton. He is not DA anymore.
Because we were talking before we started recording, and I'm like, DA this, DA that, and he's like,
no.
Who are you talking about?
Okay, fine. He doesn't deserve a nickname anymore. Does he deserve a roster spot on the Phoenix Suns anymore?
Sure, but not at a max deal. Not at a one of the highest paid players on the team.
Because you're a restricted
Absolutely
free agent this year, meaning the Suns can make a preliminary offer, right? And then he has the ability to go out and test the free agent market. He might find an offer sheet. He might not. If he does, the Suns have the first right to match that offer sheet if they want to.
I'm going to put it to you like this. In my opinion, my humble opinion, I think DeAndre Ayton in a week's time or a week and a half time, however long this 7-game series, I think it's 2 weeks, 10 days, maybe, give or take. I think DeAndre Ayton cost himself $80 million at least. Because, one, he wasn't going to get a max deal anyway because that's reserved for your top 2 players. Really your top player. The super max, you're going to give that to that's coming to Devin Booker, and he deserves it. But then you start talking about the max. Chris Paul's already got that.
2 of those.
You got 2 of those already. So now are you going to give a third one to a guy that got clearly worked in this series? And a guy that in that Game 7, Mike, looked as small as an ant. I mean, like, you are the biggest guy on the floor, and you came up so small.
So, and let's come back to what's going to happen in the offseason, because there's several things that we got to get to. But when you look at that, what you're talking about in that game, when Monty Williams pulled him out of the game, and then he goes to the bench, and Monty Williams still is saying something to him, and he snaps back at Monty Williams after the way he played.
Right.
And everybody who, whether or not you want to sit, and we can talk about Monty Williams, and I thought he was very, very humble and very, very open, taking full responsibility, which it wasn't full responsibility. There can be shared responsibility.
Sure.
It wasn't full responsibility.
Yep.
But nowhere out there have you ever heard like that. This is a guy that players don't like to play for or whatever. Like
the complete opposite.
This kind of goes to
opposite.
what I was talking about. What the cool family, like he's the cool dad. Like everybody likes this guy.
Yep.
And Sean and I were talking about Michael Malone. Remember last year when he's ripping his players from the podium?
Yep.
I need to go find me some players that are going to play that got some heart and blah, blah, blah. And that's the complete opposite of Monty Williams. And so for DeAndre Ayton to publicly on national TV do that to his head coach,
emotions got the best of him, Mike.
But
and it wasn't a great look.
That factors into that $80 million. It's got to.
It absolutely factors into that $80 million. And I think if you want to go even further, I think he may have cost himself $100 million, because if you look at DeAndre Ayton and what he's done since he's been the number 1 overall draft pick of the Phoenix Suns, has he been that guy that has said, you can say, they got to the finals because of DeAndre Ayton? No. Can you say that they got to the best record in the West or in all of the NBA because of the play of DeAndre Ayton? No. He is not the guy. He is not the cog that makes this engine go from a player standpoint. He's not even the 4th most important player on this team right now as it stands, Mike. So if he's not the 4th best player, how are you going to give him 2nd or 3rd best salary on this team? And a guy that's a former number 1 overall pick, his slot may demand it, but I don't see the Phoenix Suns coughing up that kind of money to retain the services of DeAndre Ayton.
And it's not something that is getting better. Like, you see glimpses, you see flashes.
He is what he is right now, man.
He is what he is. But even you go back a couple years ago, remember when they were doing the COVID schedule and they would play 2 games in the same city to cut travel?
Yeah.
And they finished up the regular season in San Antonio, back-to-back games, and they didn't play DA in either one of those games.
Yeah.
And it was almost the same kind of answer that you got from Monty on the podium the other day. It's an internal thing. We're just working through some things with DA. Like, maybe trying to get his attention before the postseason started a couple years ago. And now you fast forward to how it ended, where Monty Williams is essentially saying the same things. It's an internal thing. We'll work through it.
Yeah.
Like at some point,
you can't.
You're not going to change. Whatever he is, he is. And we talk about this, and I don't know if it's as prevalent in the NBA as it is in definitely the NFL. When you talk about whose guy he is.
Sure.
James Jones didn't draft him.
No, he did not.
So to your point, does that make it easier to make that decision not to give him that contract?
Absolutely.
Because he's not your guy.
Absolutely.
I say, I didn't draft him.
That's right.
I'm cleaning up up the last guy's
Cleaning
mess.
up the mess. That's right. And here's the thing, Mike. You can hide a guy during the regular season.
Yeah.
You can hide his performance and his impact on the game. But when you get to the playoffs, you get put on front and center. You get put on blast. And it didn't help that Luka Doncic was the guy that was number 3 in the same draft as the DeAndre Ayton. And oh, by the way, the Phoenix Suns had Luka Doncic coach at the time.
Who wanted to draft him.
Who wanted to draft him. And now just think about this. If you had Luka Doncic, you had Devin Booker, and you had a Chris Paul to actually lead these guys and be able to set them up to put them in their sweet spot so they can get the ball whenever they want it and just catch and shoot and not have to dribble or do anything else. Mike, I think about that team. That team probably is going to run it back like 2 times, maybe 3 times, because who is going to slow them down from a defensive standpoint? Yeah, you can maybe stop one, but you're not stopping all 3 of them.
Let me ask you this. You guys know basketball. Do you end up with Chris Paul? Had you drafted Luka Doncic, you probably keep Igor Kokoshkov longer than 1 year, meaning you don't get Monty Williams.
Maybe. It depends on the relationship with Igor and
those
Luka.
2. If you have those 2, you're not going out and getting Chris Paul. Chris Paul's not here if you've got Luka and Devin Booker, 2 extremely ball-dominant players who are going to be bringing the ball up as soon as it touches half court. Luka's going to have the ball in his hands.
If I'm Chris Paul, I want to play with him.
And then the question is, how do Luka, because of that, how ball dominant they are, how does Luka and Devin coexist? And do we see the extreme jump for Devin Booker over the last 2 years if Luka's here? I almost think, obviously the Suns didn't draft the better player, not even remotely close. We're talking about DeAndre Ayton not being on this roster going forward. But are the Suns in this position had they drafted Luka Doncic, or are they the Mavericks right now? You know what I mean? Would the Suns have made a finals run? Is Chris Paul actually here? Is Monty Williams even the head coach? It's hard to even say had they, you know what I mean? It would have been a completely different. Is James Jones even your GM?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Everything could be different.
Everything could be different, but I think if you had a Luka Doncic, I think the Suns are even more attractive because now you got that centerpiece between him and Devin Booker. These are 2 young guns that you can build around for years to come. And I disagree with you respectfully because I think if you're Chris Paul, you look at this situation and like, man, I got 2 guys that can take some of the pressure off of me. I don't have to be that floor general all the time. I don't have to play 48 minutes or 40 minutes as it is. I can go off. I can be the guy that leads the second team. I can let them do all the heavy work, and I can come in and be that guy that keeps everything going and facilitate to everybody. I can still be that experienced guy, and I can let these guys do what they do, and I can ride along for a championship run. Nothing different than what his best friend LeBron James has done. Now, clearly he's been the best player.
Right.
But LeBron James has not won a single thing without having help with him. He's had a couple of all-star players to go alongside of him.
And the other thing you still would have gotten, again, if right, and I grant your point, is the thing that you have heard so much about Chris Paul the last couple of years is obviously the on-court stuff, but what he's meant to Devin Booker and why he, or what he tried to do with DeAndre Ayton, get in his ear and help toughen him up or help mold him into the type of professional basketball player that you wanted him to be, which he wasn't before Chris Paul got here. And who's to say he couldn't have had the same impact on Luka if that whole scenario I know there's a lot of what ifs and all that, but it's a fascinating thing to think about.
But here's the thing, though. When we talk about DeAndre Ayton, at no point in his time here in Phoenix have you said the Suns are successful because of him. This is a number 1 overall pick in the draft, and you can't point to any time in his 4 years or whatever it's been since he's been drafted that you can say, man, the Suns were so lucky to get DeAndre Ayton. He's the reason that we got through this point. You go back to the finals. What did Giannis Antetokounmpo do? He took full advantage of DeAndre Ayton.
Wore him out.
To the point where they were talking about, because they didn't have Frank Kaminsky, the guy that was his backup, he wasn't in there to kind of take the load off of DeAndre Ayton because Giannis was giving him so much work.
Yeah.
You've looked at him and said, yeah, he's the blame, but you've never looked at him and said he's the reason we're better. And to me, if you're a number 1 pick and you've had 4 years to figure this out, that's the equivalent of 4 years of college, by the way. So you should have matured at some point. Some element of your game should have expanded by now, and we haven't seen any aspect of his game take that next step. We haven't seen his back down game get any better. We haven't seen his turnaround, his hook from that sweet spot on the elbow. We haven't seen that get better. We haven't even seen him from a defensive standpoint really get that much better. Every time we look at DeAndre Ayton, it's always, okay, man, when is this guy going to figure it out? Win. And I'm like, at some point, you've got to make a tough decision if you're James Jones. One is, I'm not giving him the max. Like, that's done. Like, to me, that was done before the playoffs began. And then once you've seen him be in that pressure cooker of the playoffs where now you're front and center and all eyes are on you, you've seen him come up smaller and smaller by the year.
And I was hoping that we saw, and I think every Suns fan was, that you saw him turning somewhat of a corner in the postseason last year. I mean, he had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 20, and 10 games in the postseason just last year.
Yeah, but
8, 20, and 10. And he had the one game, he had 22 boards and 19 points in another game. It felt at moments like he was maybe turning that corner. People were giving Chris Paul a lot of credit for that,
sure,
but it just never rolled into this season.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing that you always remember. You always remember that last performance. And 2 years in a row, we remember DeAndre Ayton's last performance getting worked over.
Oh, yeah.
Getting worked like a part-time job by the other guy's best player, Luka Doncic, who took great pleasure, who we talked about it, Mike, smiled the entire time he was giving him the business in Game 7. And reminding him that, oh, yeah, they took you instead of me. You could have had all this, but now I'm going to give you that work and remind you again when I see you again that, yeah, you messed up, bro. You messed up.
When you, and I think it was Jalen Rose who was talking about this, but when you see a professional athlete who was clearly in a zone, who was clearly feeling it, and then he gets that smile on his face.
He had the smile from the jump, Mike.
What's that like? I know you had to have gone up against somebody in a professional setting as a professional player where you know they're getting the better of you, unfortunately, and they are making damn sure you know it.
Well,
how do you keep your mind right in that moment?
Well, you know, you have to be professional and not swing on somebody. Because your first thing is to just, you just had enough. You just want to go oops upside the head. I will say Willie Roaf, and I've said this story many times. Willie Roaf in 1998 was a guy that he was already established as a pretty damn good left tackle for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
Saints weren't that good. They weren't the Aints, but they weren't much better than that. You know, guys weren't wearing the paper bags over their head anymore, but they still weren't really that team. Willie Roaf used to wear glasses underneath his helmet. And when I saw him in the warm-ups with those specs on, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. A guy with specs on is gonna try to block me? Oh, no. It's on and popping up in here. When do I line up? And this man proceeded to give me all the business. I'm talking about from play 1 to whatever play was at the end of the game. I had to go shake his hand. I was like, you know what? I owe you an apology.
Was he letting you know it, though, throughout the game?
I mean, he in his own way.
Okay.
Because he was finishing me on all of those runs, and if I got caught out, off balance, he was letting me know that, he was just going to put that little extra weight on me. Like, those linemen, they like to lay on you. You know what I mean? When they get you down. Mike, I'm telling you, it's brutal on that line, brother. They like to lay on you. They like you to feel their weight. They like you to feel the weight, and when you hear that, it just takes a little bit more out of you, you know what I mean? So every time he did that, he would just take a little bit more out of me. And so by the time we got to the end of the game, I just had to go shake his hand. It's like, yeah, man, you kicked my ass. You got me.
Because that picture that went viral of Luka kind of looking up to his left at Devin Booker, who's looking forward. But even in the picture, you can tell
he knows
his conscious
he
conscious eye
knows.
is seeing that smile right
He
now.
knows.
Of course he does.
Just a whole, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just to not swing on the man like you just talked about.
But let me also say this too. There was also the flip side of that, where I knew I was working somebody over, like a part-time job. You know what I'm saying? There was 2 situations like that. One was an old teammate with the New York Giants, former college teammate Luke Pettigo.
Okay.
Luke is my man. He's a year behind me, and you know, he was a left tackle, and you know, one of my career game against the Giants, you know, I had 4 of them, and you know, 4-piece, you know, 4-piece special, you know, with biscuits, and you know, I couldn't do it to my guy because that's my guy. You know, at the end of the day, that's my brother. But there was another guy from your team, Oakland Raiders.
Was he happen to be a high first-round pick?
Named Robert Gallo.
Oh, God. Yep, that's what I was afraid of.
Yeah, and you know, proceeded to give him a 3-piece with no fries.
Oh, is that right now?
Yeah, 3-piece with no fries.
You let him know it?
I had to let him know because, you know, he was one of those, he thought he was nasty. He thought he was one of those
high pick. Yep.
Yeah, you know, he wanted to get after you, try to finish you after the play, you know what I mean? And so, you know, after the first one, you know, I just kind of stared him down, you know, just kind of let him know, like, hey, I got you.
more where that came
I got you. I hit him with the Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll be back. You know what I'm saying? So, second one, you know, gave him a little something, got the fumble, got the, you know, turnover. Gave him a little smack on the ass, you know what I mean? Hey, how you doing? How's everything going out there? You feeling all right there, buddy?
Gave him the old good game right there?
Yeah, then the third one, I was just like, hey, you know, it is what it is, bro. You know, what you going to do?
Did he shake your hand after the game?
No, he did not shake my hand after the game because they did win. And
Randy Moss on that one.
Shane Walter was
Andrew Walter, I'm sorry.
Former
Sun Devil.
Former Sun Devil, that's right. You know, we laughed about that because I actually got to interview him.
I remember that on the show.
On the show.
Yep.
And, you know, I just said, hey, no hard feelings, brother. It was just business. You know, nothing personal. I didn't know him at the time, but, you know, hey, it was what it was. But, yeah, I mean, you play this game long enough, or any professional sport long enough, you're either going to be the hammer or the nail at some point. Yeah. It just happens.
All right, real quickly, we wrap up the Suns for now. I have a feeling this is going to be something we keep coming back to as this offseason progresses. But there are 4 things, and this is coming from Bobby Marks on Twitter. Bobby Marks, ESPN.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Spent time in the front offices.
Sure.
This offseason in Phoenix is going to get awfully expensive. Number 1, DeAndre Ayton. And he didn't put DA either. He put DeAndre Ayton.
That's right.
Supermax extension for Devin Booker.
Oh, yes.
The rookie extension for Cam Johnson.
Ooh.
And for the first time since the 2009-2010 season, Robert Sarver's got to open up the checkbook.
Luxury tax?
Luxury tax.
Ugh. He's not going to love that.
And how he feels about paying the luxury tax going out in the second round may color his decision as it relates to these other things that are out there.
Yep.
And whatever else we know, whether we're talking about football, and you share this with us all the time, NBA, it's a business.
It's business
and
first.
when somebody's got a checkbook out, that I contend that if you're because these decisions were coming regardless.
Yeah.
But if you just had your parade, everybody's got the trophy.
You got a little headache because you're hungover.
Right, exactly.
You had 8 more home games. Yeah.
Made a little more money.
Made more money. Merchandise sale.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to swallow some of this stuff than it is right now.
Well, I mean, also you got to remember, too, they did get to the finals last year. So it isn't as if they didn't have recent success with this group. And I think there are a lot of movable parts, if you will. But I think there are also some guys that they're going to have to bring back and be the glue guys and make sure that this team, if they're going to try to run this back and give it another crack, they're going to have some hard decisions.
Real quick before we move on a level of 1 to 10, your concern level of Chris Paul fading out in the postseason, just looking like he gets worn out.
It doesn't get better.
The guy had 18 field goals and 18 turnovers
since his birthday. Since he turned
37. Yep. Those 5 games where you guys said, hey, Mavs got to win 4 out of 5. In those 5 games, 18 field goals, 18 turnovers, and looked awful at times.
Looked 37.
So where are you at? 1 to 10. I mean, how concerned are you? How imperative is it that they go out and find somebody that you can count on a little bit more in those moments at the point guard position when all of a sudden he doesn't look like the point guard?
Okay, so when you have a Chris Paul, a guy that is a future Hall of Famer, a guy that has made 4 different organizations better just by his presence, You have to give him that present. You have to give him that credit. And you have to, start with that. But then you look at the practical side. That's what he did. Going forward, this is a 37-year-old point guard that's too small, that can't be your best player, that's making a hell of a lot of money. That's taking a lot of your salary cap, that, hey, if we could get a great haul for him, I may think about moving Chris Paul. That sounds sacrilegious. That sounds blasphemous. But business first, it makes a lot of sense. Yes, you can get through the regular season and yeah, you can have the best record by 8 games all you want, but it doesn't matter until you get to April. And April has shown that Chris Paul isn't necessarily the most reliable player April on.
He's the first player in NBA history to have blown 5. That's right. 5 2-0 leads in the playoffs. He's also the only player that's done 4. So
you know who else is 3?
Oh, I know.
It's number 2.
That's Blake Griffin,
his teammate. And you know who was their coach?
Don't.
I'm sorry.
And the other thing, guys, talking about him being 37 years old, right? It's going to be 38 next year.
That's my point. You're
come the postseason. Yeah, that's how it works, Grose. The one more.
He'll be 38.
It's not like he's Benjamin Button. He's not aging backwards. You know what I mean? So at some point, you have to make a real tough decision. Is Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton enough to get through?
With almost Shannon.
No, I was not. No, I wasn't. I did that on purpose. I painfully spread that out because I wanted to make sure that there is no nickname for that gentleman anymore. It's DeAndre Ayton. Is that enough? Can you bring in another guy that could come in and possibly be that spark plug? Because there's rumors about a guy out there in Portland that may be interested in coming and playing with these guys. I mean, is he an upgrade from a Chris Paul? I think so.
I think he is.
And so, there's a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made between now and next October.
We'll keep following it. This is a topic that's going to keep on giving.
Yeah, it ain't going nowhere.
This is, I'm still at a loss for words for the description, right? Just sitting there watching this game defies description. All right, on the other side, there's still NBA basketball being played.
That's right.
We'll talk about that next on Train and Grose.
Yeah.
Train and Grose.
Don't forget, follow us on Twitter at Train and Grose.
Keep it simple.
It's so easy. At Train and Grose.
So easy, caveman can do it.
I forgot about those commercials.
Man, just saying.
They've been rolling them back lately. You notice that?
Yeah.
Geico. They've been grabbing some of this out of the bin.
Light Beer brought back some of their football commercials.
Mike. Guess what day it is?
Hump day.
Yeah. Mike.
I hated that commercial. And speaking of punching people in the throat, did we speak about that? I used to work with somebody.
We didn't, but okay.
I used to work with somebody who did that in the office. When I come walking in, on Wednesdays, he's like, Mike, what day is it? I'm like, time to punch you in the throat, my man. Come on over here. He was a little dude. Like, nobody would have known. It would have been like, it would have been like, gotta hit him real quick.
Yeah.
This little dude stuff.
Yeah.
I gotta hit you with a.
Hold up.
What's that all about?
That's when they don't have any sound. It's like,
Yeah.
You'd have to do that, man.
They can't even scream because it's all.
Yeah, I did. All right.
How's the sound now?
Sun's out.
Yeah.
Bucks out.
It was a great series, by the way.
That was a really good series.
Celtics Bucks was one of those classics.
Miami,
until the end, kind of like the Suns and the Mavericks.
Yeah.
It was
Except
good
it
until
wasn't
Game
in
7.
Milwaukee.
Yeah. Well,
Boston got to do it on their home court. And I hate Boston fans. Hate them.
Yeah, I hate Boston, all sports fans.
But Boston and Miami in the East, and Golden State and Dallas. And I was telling you I was driving in, and the flagship station here in town for your Phoenix Suns have Drive Time Sports. Love listening to those guys. And they're signing off the show today, and they're saying, all right, coming up next, joined in progress right here on the station, we're going to take you to the Dallas Golden State game. And if I'm a Suns fan, I'm like, why?
Right.
Do I need to listen
Salt
to this?
in the wound.
Put it on another station.
By the way, 54-45 right now, Golden State. They're gonna run away from it. I guarantee you this is done in 5 games.
Where's Dallas at right now? Dallas has got to be.
They're playing with house money.
They're playing with.
They are,
and especially in Game 1.
House money. They just played Sunday. Yep.
Because Golden State was sitting around waiting for them, And like you said, house money.
Yeah, nobody expected them to get in.
Yeah. Look, hey, are you going to bet against them if they go down 0-2?
No.
Yes,
No.
in this series. Golden State's a better team than the Suns. And had the Suns beaten Dallas, I'd be sitting here telling you the same thing right now.
Well, but we didn't know that going into the playoffs. We found that out during the course of the playoffs.
Yeah, it was like that last week of the regular season when all of a sudden, Golden State's playing with this different lineup here. Look at this. Remember that?
But also, I'm saying, too, the Suns were found out during the playoffs.
Yes, very much so.
The New Orleans Pelicans kind of, started that trend, and then Dallas finished them off, obviously. And so when the playoffs started, it seemed like a collision course for Golden State and Phoenix, but the Mavericks had other plans.
When you look at this, and again, we've talked about this, Miami is a team that, I don't want to say under the radar, because when you're at the top of the conference all year.
Their culture is the star.
It's just.
The culture is
different.
the star. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different.
It's Pat Riley and the culture.
And I remember 100 years ago when Eric Spoelstra was named the head coach of this team, and it's like, here's a placeholder. What's this guy doing?
I remember saying he's just a glorified babysitter because all he had to do was manage the egos. Remember, it was LeBron and it was all
D-Wade, Chris Bosh.
and it was like, hey, just don't screw it up, dude. And all of a sudden, he's this tremendous NBA coach.
6-0 in conference finals.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yep.
I look at this and Miami seems to be, even though they were on top of the East all year, they feel like they're peaking
at the right time.
Boston's banged up.
Yeah. Well, they're banged up too.
Yeah, it feels like Boston's more banged up though. Like in terms of the key
They
players.
had two guys. Yeah. I mean, when you don't have the reigning defensive player of the year, Marcus Smart, and
I almost said Keith Smart.
Wow.
How old is that?
Wow.
Indiana Hoosiers from the 1980s.
I mean, look, at this point, there are no excuses. You're in the conference finals. Your teams have gotten there. Nobody's going to care about who's been banged up a little bit. You've got to go out there and play. Because now there are no we're going to give you sympathy points because this guy is out and this player is out for whatever reason, COVID protocol, and the other one for a foot. I mean, look, whoever's suited up, they've got to go out there and give that team some help and do what they got to do. But Miami, Mike and Sean, they just seem like that type of team where it's more team than it is individual. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, you could talk about Jimmy Butler and what he's done. He is a star in the league, and he plays his best when it matters most. Because people forget 2 years ago in the bubble, it was the Miami Heat playing the Los Angeles Lakers for the NBA title, and Jimmy Butler was playing out of his mind. And there were a lot of guys on that team that didn't get off the bench. And now these guys are major players and major guys that are contributing in a lot of different ways. So I just think with this culture that Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra have developed down there in South Beach, people they seem to bring the right guys in. And that guy PJ Tucker, who we had trouble with the other day, he has been one of those big acquisitions. I think just by taking him off of Milwaukee, it lessened Milwaukee and it strengthened Miami.
I was going to say, if they ultimately win it,
PJ Tucker's got to be that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Over in the West, you look at this as Suns fans. As people, we watch the Suns all year long.
You got to get over it.
You got to get over it. That's true. But you look at this. Who do you like less, or who do you hate more? Who do you like? Because you look at this.
You hate the team that just beat you in Game 7.
Man, but there's a lot of angst and animosity at the Golden State Warriors too.
But why? Because you keep losing to them?
Yeah, that I don't get.
Yeah. I mean, they got the most likable. They got the most likable team other than Draymond Green. They got the most likable team in all the NBA.
And I think Draymond Green is growing on NBA fans around the country too.
Draymond Green has always been a guy that I respect because I love the way he plays. Like, he understands his role. He plays it to the hilt, and he has to play with an edge. The guy is 6'5". You can't be 6'5" and undersized and just be a oh gosh kind of guy. No, you've got to play with a lot of attitude and a lot of angst, and you've got to play with your head, and that's one thing that Draymond Green does really, really well. He overcomes his size by his basketball acumen and his ability to go out there and compete and get every ounce of athleticism out of his body.
And be a little bit of thorn in the side
of course.
The class.
Every team needs one.
You know where he would have fit in well? My
Detroit.
Pistons back in the day.
Detroit.
He's cut from that cloth.
Detroit. He would have been like in 2004. He'd have been like John Sally or Dennis Rodman.
Yeah. No, I could see that. All right, we don't do predictions, but it feels. I mean, if I had to, if you take and do something we don't do, it feels like for me, I'm looking at Miami
and Golden State.
And Golden State.
Yep. Yeah. I think with the Celtics, if they had all of their guns, I may have a different thought about it. But because they've got 2 of their starters out, and those are key contributors, and now you're looking at Marcus Smart, a guy that is really the heartbeat of the Boston Celtics. Yeah, you got Jaylen Brown. Yeah, you got Jason Tatum, and they're the stars. But the heartbeat of that team is Marcus Smart.
Absolutely.
And I think for Al Horford, he's a guy that has really turned back the clock and got the fountain of youth.
Old man Al Horford.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
34 years old.
Because you remember, like, he was part of the championship teams in Florida back in the day, in 2006 and 2007. So, a guy that has been able to be around and reinvent himself into a really important player on that squad, to not have both of those guys going up against a team in Miami who just throws numbers at you. They've got so many guys that they throw out there on the court. It just seems like they're going to just wear them down just by sheer numbers and by the bodies that they can throw at Boston. I think they're going to just wear them out over time.
So related to this, but not specifically related to this, but you talk about Mark Schlereth, who gave you your start in the media. You hosted his radio show in Denver.
Forever grateful to Sting.
And, of course, you and I had a show together.
That's right, we did.
Then you got your show on the big station here in town.
There you go.
Did Fox Sports Arizona work, all that.
Sure.
So professional athletes transitioning to media is not news. It's not but Pat Beverly.
That was foul.
On ESPN.
It was foul.
It's personal.
He made it personal.
He made it personal because some of his other takes, like you listen to this guy.
It's pretty good.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but his take on Chris Paul.
He took shots.
It was personal.
Remember how the Clippers series ended? Do you remember when he walked off the floor in the Clippers series and the double hand shoved to the back of Chris Paul?
Yeah.
Threw him to the ground. I mean clearly there's something there.
He kept all the receipts. But to me, at some point, though, when you're in public, you don't embarrass the brethren. You let that.
Once you're off the court, off the field.
Yes, you got to grill it up and eat it. Whatever beef you got, you grill it up and eat it, and you do the right thing.
I like that.
So for him to go out and take those shots, I thought it was really unfair.
Yeah, and it was like if I'm thinking about, obviously he's still playing, but and he's still playing, meaning he's not in the postseason too. So this is
he's watching.
This is just a fill in. This is a fill in till he get. So I have real thoughts about that. If I'm like looking for permanency, like because you gotta try to have fair and bad. Like obviously people have opinions and that sort of thing, but that went way over the line. And we talked about this. Matt Barnes, I thought nailed it.
Yep.
What do you say? All he was missing was the red nose. Such a clown take or whatever he said.
Yeah.
And
I called him a role player. He's like, "Who are you to talk about Chris Paul?" Like
Pat
Chris
Beverly.
Paul's Chris Paul is a Hall of Famer, and you're a role player. Like, stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Like he really, I thought Matt Barnes spoke for a lot of guys around the league.
Yeah.
Currently playing in the playoffs and just teams that are not in the game in the playoffs right now.
Well, you hear about that, and I know we kind of look at like the baseball unwritten rules and all this, but in terms of crossing that line where Matt.
But that's
Barnes,
around sports, though.
No, but it's true. But I'm saying the same thing though, where Matt Barnes understands that, just what you were saying before, because Matt Barnes, Pat Beverly,
same kind of player.
Same kind of player.
Yeah.
Right?
And guys that understood, they had to help their stars.
And Matt Barnes is looking for something like, I was telling you beforehand, he's coaching AAU basketball in Los Angeles. So, hey, you want to work on TV? He's like, yeah, let's do this, right?
Why not?
So, but even in that role, to rein in Pat Beverly and say, look, you crossed that line.
But only guys that play and got the respect can do it, Mike. Now, when you talk about guys that are at the back of the bench, number 15 on the bench, I don't want to hear from them either.
Right.
But Matt Barnes, a guy that is a champion, he won one with the Golden State Warriors in 2017.
Yes, he did.
So he's got that box checked. He's a veteran that has a lot of respect around the league. Not perfect. He's made his mistakes during the course of his time. But I think when it comes from one of your fellow alum, it means something. It hits different.
Absolutely. Did you ever pay attention to what was said about you?
Depending on who it was.
Like, so a former player's in the booth.
Yep.
And you're not, you catch, because I'm sure you don't, you didn't watch the games afterwards, did you?
No.
So you find out somebody, did a former player.
Trent Dilfer.
All right.
He got me fined. One of my last games, second to last game of my career against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, that 51-45 fiasco that we played out there at State Farm Stadium. I got fined because he kept talking up the hit on the play before the turnover, the money Mike or Mike Adams, sack, strip, fumble, and Carlos Dansby catches it and runs to the end zone. Mm-hmm. The play before, I had a shot that was not called a foul on the field. He kept talking about that damn play, and I wound up getting that dreaded FedEx package, Mike. I played that playoff game for free because Trent Dilfer would not shut up about that play. And they reviewed it, and then all of a sudden the league office is like, you know what, Trent? I think you might be right. We're going to go ahead and fine Mr. Berry. And I got a fine, and I ain't forgot that.
You ever talked to Trent Dilfer?
No, I haven't talked to him. I don't need to talk to him because if I talk to him, it's going to be some furniture moving. It's going to be a real misunderstanding.
He knows about that.
I want my money.
Yeah.
I ain't playing. I want my money. I'm still pissed about that.
And thank you for clarifying the money Mike.
Yeah.
Because that.
I mean, we know who the real money Mike
is.
That's
my exactly. Thank you, Big Al.
Shout out to Mike Adams. That's my guy too. They're both my guy. He's a Texas guy too. So
All right. On the other side, there's still a little NFL stuff going on, and Jerry Jones cannot help himself. We'll talk about that next on Train and Grose.
Yep.
Train and Grose.
Did you know you can see us on YouTube too?
Sure can.
And you can subscribe. Mm-hmm. That way you're notified when new podcasts come out.
That's right.
Do it at, you got to go to all
AZ Sports on
AZ Sports
YouTube.
On YouTube. And then
yes. But you just search for Train and Grose and there it is.
We're part of the family.
Booyaka, booyaka.
NFL, the schedule gets announced.
Really? I mean,
TV ratings abound.
Okay, hang on. Let's pause there because I love that reaction.
I know.
As a player, did you care?
No.
Really? You're not looking at road trips in January? You're not looking for where the bye week is? You're not looking for any of that? You didn't care?
You can see that at any point. What difference does it make that it came out in May or looking at it during the preseason? Because if you're a guy that's anywhere from 35 to 80 on the roster, your spot's not guaranteed. It may not be your schedule anyway. So what do you care?
But guys like you coming off a Pro Bowl, you're not sitting in the locker room with the other guys going, all right, well, we're going to be here.
No, because you don't know what the team. No, you
No?
don't care. I mean, all you know is the only thing that you really are concerned about is how many primetime games we got. Mm-hmm. Do we have a Monday night? Do we got a Sunday night?
Bye week isn't even a conversation?
Bye week is always, it was only a conversation if it was really early or if it was really late.
Right. What do you prefer?
I prefer right in the middle.
I mean, obviously, but if you're stuck with the early or late,
I'd rather have the later.
Okay.
Because I want to see where we are.
I agree.
When I get that rest, and then we can make that big push.
Right.
But if it's later, that's a long stretch from camp. Well, these days it's a little bit different. But old school camp was something to be dreaded.
Yeah.
And you survived camp. So from camp, those 4 weeks of camp to about week 7, 8, that's a long time to grind each and every day with pads and all that kind of good stuff. So it's a different game now. I don't think guys worry about when their bye week is because at this point, everybody's fresh anyway because nobody's hit anybody. You haven't done anything in the preseason. You only got 3 of them now. And when you play these games, you're only getting about a quarter's worth of time anyway if you're a starter or a guy that is looked at as a main contributor.
Deshaun Watson.
Meeting with the NFL officials.
Well, he's doing that, but before he finds out the outcome of that, he's taking his offensive teammates, Cleveland Browns,
to Cancun or something,
to the Bahamas.
Bahamas, there you go. Bahamas. It's a great move.
Chartered a jet, said get your passports
But he did
ready.
get a field, and they are doing daily workouts together.
In the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Okay, so that reminds me of the Pro Bowl. Like you going out there, you may be doing about 45 minutes of all that kind of stuff, like blah blah blah. But then, hey, what time are we hitting the bar?
So you obviously play defense, but if you're an offensive tackle and you get the text from Deshaun saying, "Hey, we're going to the Bahamas," you on board with that?
Yeah, hell yeah. Why wouldn't I? Now the only thing that you're gonna have to worry about now is when you get home and you got to deal with the missus. Because she's not going to be happy that you went to the Bahamas without her.
Business trip
my ass. It's the Bahamas. And you start talking about, some of the things that you can do at the Bahamas now. Mike, it's always this. It always starts like this. I find it funny how.
yeah, exactly.
Soon as you hear that, time to run, time to go. It's time to go.
I find it funny how.
Yeah. Or it's fine.
Yeah, just go.
Did you have a good time? Fine.
I'm okay.
Fine. I'm okay. What's wrong? Nothing. I'm fine.
Baker Mayfield making the trip? He invited the offensive teammates.
Sure did. That's a good call.
Yeah, Baker's not going.
I don't think
he respectfully declined.
Yeah. Oh, I'm busy that day.
We're gonna get into that in
Should I let it go?
Pump the Brakes a little bit. He's part of Pump the Brakes. Put it that way.
Baker's like, I got a project at the stadium I'm working on.
I think, but wow.
Yeah,
I got a
moving
commercial
out
to shoot. Yeah. Yeah, we're wrapping up the whole progressive saga.
All right, and as we wrap this up, and this may take a while, you mentioned Deshaun Watson. He's got his meeting with the NFL this week in Houston. Jerry Jones giving an interview to Peter King, and he's talking about all the bad stuff going on in the NFL, of which the Cowboys are right in the middle of it.
That's right.
They paid out the cheerleading coach, I think. The voyeurism, like one of the VPs are, standing in the locker room watching the cheerleaders change. Other, sexual harassment issues in the front office.
There you go.
We haven't even talked a while about Daniel Snyder and the fact he got put out of the office.
Yes.
And now the New York Times is doing an expose on the Oakland Raiders saying they didn't even pay their damn electric bill.
Wow.
Like everybody's talking about the Arizona Coyotes can't pay their bill. The Raiders are on the front page of the New York Times. Is bad news good for the NFL?
No, it's not.
I disagree with Jerry. Jerry's like, hey, just as long as it's news, we'll take it.
But he got that from the former Raiders owner Al Davis. All publicity is good publicity, and I tend to disagree now because now you're in an age where there is coverage 24/7. Everybody has access to everything, and when you start to hear so much bad stuff about one team in particular. In one organization, it's like, okay, these guys seem like they're bad guys. Like, trouble seems to find them all the time. And I don't think that's ever going to be good for an organization. So I think if you are talking about deflated balls, that's one thing. But then when you start talking about real assault and real harm to women and things of that nature, that's a totally different animal. So I think when you start looking at those situations, it comes off a little different than it would trying to get a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
People look at the Washington Commanders differently than they look at the New England Patriots. Like one team is, okay, they're trying to circumvent the rules. Yeah. They're trying to win. The other team is a bunch of sleazeballs.
Yeah, and the other thing that I find with that comment by Jerry Jones is it's extremely hypocritical because, we hear this all the time from owners, and I'm sure we could find a time when Jerry Jones said it when one of his players got in trouble, if I can use the air quotes, if you're watching on YouTube.
Mike, let's not forget about the White House back in the day. That was infamous with the Dallas Cowboys.
But that's my point. It's like when you talk about protect the shield.
Yeah.
You heard it as a player.
Yeah.
Don't do anything to embarrass the league.
Yeah. Then they go and move to Vegas, but that's a whole nother story.
Well.
Yeah.
But then you got, and I think the poster child right now for that is Daniel Snyder.
Oh.
And the joke of a punishment.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to take him out, and his wife can be the figurehead.
But Mike, you got to think about who's the one exhibiting all or executing all the punishment. His former or his current compadres.
Yeah.
The other 31 owners, they're the ones that are making decisions on their boy.
Yeah.
It's like, are you going to really go hard on your guy that helps you make all this money? No, you're not going to go hard on him. You're going to find every way that you can to slap him on the wrist and keep him moving.
Well, on the flip side, unless it's so egregious, a la the LA Clippers, you don't know necessarily like what's going on in your building. Like if a story came out about fill in the blank, your favorite team in the NFL,
yep.
and some of the similar stories, it's not inconceivable that you could have that type of thing happen. It's a workplace. It's you got so many people that work in the front office of an NFL team.
Yep.
It's an office.
Yep.
It's no different than an insurance office or whatever.
Yep.
So you got all these people in there. You got bad actors in there.
Absolutely.
And how do you police it? How do you keep it in control?
Mike, the inconvenient truth about that is there's a lot of teams that haven't come out to say anything because they're probably dealing with it internally themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the part that people really don't want to talk about when all of these type of issues come out. The other owners don't come out of respect. They come out they don't say anything out of fear because they don't want their business to be put out there on the street. They look at Daniel Snyder and they're like, man, sucks to be you. But I'm like, phew, glad it ain't me in my program because you could actually go back to the Carolina Panthers back in the day when Richardson was the owner of the Carolina Panthers, and all those things came out. You think Daniel Snyder was going to be quick to come out and say something bad at that time? No, because he knew there was stuff going on in his own organization. So those guys all understand that, it's probably a good idea to keep my mouth shut when somebody is going through, because that could very easily be us and what we have to deal with.
And the other thing that's interesting, and if you read this Raiders story, it's like the horror movie. The call's coming from inside the building. And what happened was apparently there was an employee fired by the Raiders. And he's like,
disgruntled employees.
Oh, check this out, my man. He's got the cutoff notice from wherever they were paying the electric bill. Yeah. Because he won't pay the electric bill. Yeah. He goes, what are they gonna do? Shut the power off on the Raiders?
Yeah.
They ain't gonna do that. You can turn the power off.
You don't want it. Look, when you have certain people in certain positions, it's not a good idea to piss them off, because they've got information that it could be very damning if it ever got out. And when people have an axe to grind, that could get very ugly.
Yeah. Well, and apparently this guy made a report to the NFL.
Yep. Probably got ignored.
And said, hey, Mark Davis isn't a good owner. And there was a lot underneath that. Davis found out, said, you're gone. And the guy's like, okay.
Well, those are two different stories. So there's the one from the Post, right? And then there's the president that just left, who apparently had been told from some female employees that that they had some issues with Mark Davis. He didn't get into great detail of what it was, unflattering things about Mark Davis. He brought it to Mark Davis. Mark Davis apparently did not respond in a fashion that
favorable,
that he wanted. You know what I mean? And so he went to the NFL at that point.
Yeah.
So,
and
at that point he said, okay, well then listen, this is not going to work.
To using your term, kept the receipts, literally.
Absolutely.
Yes. Kept the receipts.
Kept all the receipts.
Yeah.
And can we just talk about Mark Davis and his haircut, though? Talk about things that are not favorable. That haircut, at some point, enough is enough.
So he's been asked about it a handful of times in interviews, and he just said he wanted something where he didn't have to worry about it after getting out of the shower.
There you go.
I mean, but going with alfalfa look, the alfalfa look is straight. It's been played out for a lot of years.
Yeah, straight Dumb and Dumber from the movie Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
It's Lloyd Christmas.
But I guess you look at it too. It's like you got the Raiders.
I don't like it a lot.
You got the Raiders, iconic. This is
one of the originals,
right?
Yeah.
NFL films. You grow up knowing who the hell the Raiders are. You got the Cowboys.
Yeah, Lambeau Field,
America's team. Yeah, all that. And then Daniel Snyder, you own a team in the nation's capital. We're not talking about the outpost of Jacksonville.
No.
We got problems with Jacksonville again.
Yeah.
Jacksonville's problem.
Or Seattle, the great Northwest. What are those guys doing out there?
Guess what? The Lions, you ain't won shit anyways, and you stiffed the electric company in Detroit. People don't care about the Lions or the Jaguars.
That's right.
This is the Raiders.
Yeah.
This is the Cowboys.
And the Commanders.
The Redskins.
Did you see that?
Commanders.
Get it right. Man, you went back 2 names.
Yeah.
I like the Washington football team, P.S.
I did too.
It grew on me.
It did.
I was fine with it.
I was okay with it too.
After the schedule release came out,
I
saw a stat that I didn't even realize. This is the 11th consecutive year where the Jacksonville Jaguars do not end up on Monday Night Football.
They don't deserve to be on Monday Night Football.
11 consecutive years?
Who wants to watch Jacksonville Jaguars
Not me, but that's crazy.
Prime time?
I'm from Detroit, and the Detroit fans were beefing about no primetime games. What?
Yeah.
Why do you get Thanksgiving game? That's prime time.
That's prime time.
You're the only team playing in that slot.
That's right.
There's a prime time game
every year. And it's been that way for what? At least 50.
The Lions going to beef about none of that.
Yeah.
And the Jaguars, it doesn't surprise me. Did you guys see these teams are releasing the videos, like their schedule release videos?
Everybody's trying to outdo each other.
Everybody's trying to outdo. Did you see the Chargers?
No.
Yeah, they did the anime thing.
Anime?
Yeah.
We'll show it to you during the break. You can quit.
And we'll tweet it out.
Because the Chargers took no prisoners.
Wow.
They play the Jaguars. And the Jaguar scene.
The animated portion for when they put the Jags in the date in which they're going to play the Jags was an animation of Urban Meyer in the bar chilling against the bar with the chick in front of him.
Wow.
Yeah.
They play the Cardinals this year.
Wow.
And it was a picture of Kyler Murray deleting his social media.
Wow.
They took no.
They got to do something. I mean, they're sharing the stadium with the team that is the actual best team in the league.
And I'm sure their PR people were like, "Hey, People didn't know who the Chargers were.
Oh, and they were getting ripped by Raider players when the schedule came out because the Raiders are going to L.A. to play the Chargers week 1, and then they play the Cardinals week 2 at home. So Raider players were tweeting, "Oh, it looks like we got back-to-back home openers." And yeah, it's getting chippy. It's going to be a fun year in the AFC West.
Schedule release.
It's going to be fun in the AFC West.
I mean, look, you got to okay.
And that's not wrong. Have you ever seen a Raider game in L.A.?
Schedule releases are fun. Come on.
It is not fun. It is a waste of time. Let us see who the hell. We know who we're going to play.
You already know the opponents. You just don't know when.
Yeah, but when, I mean, okay, now the thing that you do look at when you start thinking about the schedule is where are my cold weather games? What time of year?
Back-to-back road games?
If I got it, back-to-back road games. But more importantly, do I got to go play out in the elements? Do I have a team? Do I have to go play the Browns?
Buffalo.
Do I have to go play Buffalo?
New England.
Do I have to play New England, Green Bay? Any of those in November, December? Because if any of those are in November, December, you're pissed. You're like, nah, they could come here.
And then you have your preseason meeting with your accountant if you've got games in California, New York, New Jersey.
Just cut the check. Just cut the check. You know what time it is. Just take it.
Playing those for free too.
Yeah, well, almost. Just cut the check. You cutting the check. I mean, it ain't quite your whatever the game check is, but it's close.
So you when the Cardinals were playing in the NFC East, and you flip back,
brutal.
It's almost like you got a raise.
Brutal.
Because what's the old saying? It's not how much you make,
it's how much you spend,
or how much you
keep.
How much you keep.
How much you keep. Because Philly, somebody was telling me Philly charges like there's a state tax and there's a city tax.
There's like a Delaware's. Delaware's gets a piece of that somehow, some way. I was like, how the hell Delaware get some of my money? You played the Eagles.
You drove through Delaware to get to the stadium, so you got to pay.
You land there and you got to.
Yeah, same thing with New England.
Delaware airspace
Rhode
tax.
Island got a little something. They got a little action when you go play the Patriots.
Delaware airspace tax or something like that.
I'm like, what the hell does Rhode Island got to do with this football game? We played New England Patriots. We didn't play Rhode Island. The hell?
New England, man. They look.
Although it was a nice little gentleman's joint in Rhode Island that some guys just freaking, but that's
they got a little bit of my money.
That's the story for another day.
It's the original 13 colonies tax.
You think guys actually pay attention to these now? Now you got Vegas as well, Miami, obviously. Teams where you don't have nearly as much tax. Is that a real thing in free agency? You think?
Oh hell yes.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes. I did not go to the Cowboys because of the state tax. Stephen Jones tried to get me to take a lesser deal because he was like, well, we don't have state tax, so we're not going to offer you as much.
So you didn't buy that argument?
I didn't buy that at all. I was like, get out of here with that nonsense.
Because again, if you have a good accountant, you're not paying it all.
You can do the math, Mike.
Right.
If you ain't got to pay state tax, that is huge.
Yeah.
That is a pay raise in and of itself.
If that was the case, Florida ain't got a state tax. Jacksonville wouldn't suck for so long if that was the case. Because everybody, all things being equal, I'd rather be in Jacksonville.
Yeah, well, but you still got to play for that team. And look out for Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville may make a little noise.
I think the whole Trevor Lawrence thing, I think you take year one and you got to throw it away.
How bad could it be? I mean,
you got to throw it away. You can't possibly.
Didn't have ATN either, the other number one pick.
Yeah,
running back.
And you had the disaster of a coach and just everything. You take year one for him, you throw it out the window.
It's got to be like a breath of fresh air down there now.
Yeah.
Like, just the way.
I got Peoples down there. My man Buck is the D-line coach down there, and my man Josh Allen, client. Shout out to Josh Allen.
Oh, that's
going to have a big year. Yeah, the other Josh Allen.
He's coaching quarterbacks now.
Actually, we'll talk about that.
Is that right?
Air.
Okay,
we'll talk about that off air.
Okay.
All right, on the other side, you tune in for the good stuff.
Yeah.
And that's Pump the Brakes.
There we go.
And Dad
Jokes.
Jokes. Coming up next on Training Grose.
Yep.
Welcome back in Training Grose. Regular listeners know the music.
That's right.
Time for some Pump the Brakes action, Sean Crespin.
That's right.
This one's pretty simple, straight to the point. For those of us who've never heard Pump the Brakes, I'm going to throw out some statements floating around the world of sports, a little pop culture. You tell me if you're pumping the brakes on it or if you're riding with it. First one, a lot of people talking about this. Luka and Booker, the NBA's next great rivalry. Pump the brakes or not?
I'm not going to pump the brakes. I think both of these guys are young stars. Luka has definitely put himself in a different category with his success in the postseason. The one thing that had eluded him his first couple years was he was unable to get out of the first round. Well, he's been able to get out of the first round and the second round, and now he's playing in a conference final with his rookie head coach. Or not rookie head coach, but new coach to the team in Jason Kidd. And so I look at Luka and you love everything about his game except maybe his defense, but you can overlook that because of what he brings on the other side of the ball. He is got the full package. He's got the command of the team. He's got the respect of the players around him. And I think he's only going to continue to get better. He's one of those guys that I think players are going to gravitate to him. When you start talking about role players, guys that can spot up and shoot, they're going to want to play with a Luka Doncic. So he is going to be the guy the high tide that floats all boats.
But a rivalry is only good if you have multiple instances where you're butting heads in big moments like a playoff series.
Absolutely.
It's only good if both sides are having some type of success. So do we see paths in which that's a thing here?
Of course.
I think so. I mean,
course.
the Suns, I mean, look, as big of a disappointment as the ending of the season was, the Suns are still in.
You got to take a step back.
Yeah.
You got to take a step back.
Devin's 25, Luka's 23.
Yeah.
Everything you just said, absolutely, I think you could see it coming. It's got to happen, but we can't know that today. But I could see it happen, and I think it would be great.
Yep.
And I think the foundation, we talk about a foundation, the foundation for a great rivalry was laid.
Yeah.
And again, it is that picture that you talked about.
Yep.
He's pulling on the shorts, standing at the free throw line, staring through Devin Booker.
Yeah.
Well, and all the other moments, right, where Booker getting knocked down and kind of faking an injury, and he got up laughing and said that's the Luka special. Him smacking the ball out of Luka's hands when the Suns were up.
All of it.
Luka walking into the back going, everybody's hard when they're up one game. You know, it's trending that direction after one series. Understand we need more.
Yeah.
We need another year or two,
Yeah.
but it's definitely turned in that direction.
Absolutely.
I agree. Okay,
doubt.
everything we talked about in the first segment with the Phoenix Suns, the offseason that's ahead of them. Plus, you look at the Western Conference overall, you know, Memphis isn't going away. I mean, there's a handful of teams. I mean, this Golden State team might continue to get better as Clay has more time, you know, in his return.
Let's not forget about the Clippers when they get healthy.
Go down the list, right?
Yeah.
So the question to you, pump the brakes or not, the window for the Phoenix Suns is closed at this point.
No, pump the brakes. It's not closed, but you better put your foot in there to stop it.
Because you're talking about Chris Paul, you know, all the things we talked about. How much is he long for this going forward? 38 years old, come playoffs next year.
Yeah.
I'll hold up.
DeAndre
Ayton
That's
on the
right.
way out,
Yeah.
potentially. I mean,
But
there's
it's
a lot
the
of
rest of
change
the
over
conference.
here.
It's the rest of the conference
Yep.
that I think is going to get healthy because there was a lot of guys that were out of the playoffs this year due to health reasons and guys that didn't perform. Damian Lillard is another guy. Even though he doesn't have C.J. McCollum, who's now in New Orleans now, you think about the New Orleans Pelicans. That's a team that's going to be up and coming. Are they going to be a team that takes that next step, and do they bring in a free agent or two, and do they get Zion Williamson back, and can he integrate himself into that mix and what they've already got? I think Willie Green can be that coach that can really get the most out of that team, and they can really make some noise. And, of course, the Memphis Grizzlies, with Ja Morant healthy and the rest of that team healthy and what they were able to do already, they're not scared of anybody. And they are young enough to not know what they don't know.
The question is the window closed? And I pump the brakes too. It's not closed.
No, it's not closed.
Again,
Is it closing?
But put the foot in the door, though.
they
Yes.
missed a golden opportunity.
They sure did.
One.
Oh.
But I go back to what I said before. Devin Booker's only 25. He's the cornerstone of your franchise.
Yes,
right
he
now.
is.
He's only 25.
He's a supermax guy.
He's a supermax guy. He ain't going anywhere. Lots of questions, but it's not closed. Closing, maybe. Did you miss a golden opportunity? You absolutely
I think
did.
you're going to look back at that series.
You're going to root today.
You're up 2-0 last year. You know what I
You're going to
mean?
root today.
Yeah.
I think that's going to haunt Suns fans for a long time.
It's going to hunt Chris Paul more than it hunts
I
Devin
agree.
Booker because Devin Booker's going to have more cracks at it than Chris Paul.
Absolutely.
I agree. This Antonio Brown this week, I don't know if you guys saw, said he wants to retire as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Pump the brakes or not, Pittsburgh should just give him the one-day contract, let him retire as a Steeler.
Pump the damn brakes.
I mean, look at all the great plays and moments he had as a Steeler. You're not going to overlook all
the knucklehead moments too.
that doesn't outweigh it. You know, we're doing the scale, you know, knucklehead on this side and, you know, great plays on this side. Doesn't balance out.
You couldn't stay with one of the best run organizations in all of sports.
Right. And you think back at how amazing Mike Tomlin is. If you just add something else to the list.
The stuff that he put up with this guy.
And you didn't hear about it until it became overly. You couldn't hide it because he didn't show up in Week 17. Other than that, you didn't hear about it.
But think about what this man had to deal with Antonio Brown. The only stuff that we only saw was, the Facebook Live, the throwing the cooler on the field, the getting into it with the coaches on the sideline. Those were things that Mike Tomlin couldn't control. Yeah. Can you imagine if he was doing that on game day? Can you imagine what he was like Monday through Saturday in the facility? Antonio, really?
Yeah.
So you think they're going to let him come back and sign a one-day contract to represent that organization?
I was just asking the question.
So the most recent...
Yes, I agree. I knew I was going to get this response.
I'm pumping the brakes, too.
Okay.
And the most recent quote from Mike Tomlin on Antonio Brown was a couple years ago, but I think it's still appropriate. We have no current business interest. Next question.
The better one was, we want volunteers, not hostages.
Yes.
That's one of the best lines I've ever heard. And I think Mike Tomlin summed that up perfectly when he talked about Antonio Brown, as well as some other guys. It wasn't just Antonio Brown. He's used it a few times, but that is an all-time one-liner.
I can't even remember. I wish I remembered the context in which he gave the response, but somebody asked Mike Tomlin a question at a press conference, and he literally just responded by saying, "We do not care." And that's all over the internet now, used as memes. And that's what I saw mostly posted under
Short and to the point.
AB.
I mean, that's what you love about Mike Tomlin. But that's Pittsburgh. They are simple, to the point. They are direct. They are straightforward.
Yep.
And if you're Antonio Brown and you can't make it there, where the hell you think you're going to make it? And you think they really are going to want you back after everything that you put them through? I don't think
Not even the one day?
No. And you think about the one day when that happens. That's something.
I was going to ask what your guys' thoughts are on the one day.
I mean, I get it. I understand it. But you earn that.
Yes.
You earn that to be able to come back to a franchise and say, hey, I know I did this and left and did whatever, but it was a mutual thing, whatever. When I was here, I represented well.
It was a business decision.
Yeah, it was a business decision. But when I was here, I represented well. I consider myself to be a Steeler forever or a Cardinal for life or whatever team you're talking about.
Yep.
This is not – Antonio Brown fits none of that.
Yeah. Perfect example was James Harrison. Even when James Harrison left under the way that he left and went to the New England Patriots,
right,
he still had a better case because it wasn't about the drama of it. It was the business aspect of it that made him leave. They didn't think that he was worth the money, so he went to the rival because they knew what his value was. And even he was able to get a one-day contract and retire a Steeler. Antonio Brown ain't getting a one-day contract.
He put it out there, Antonio Brown put it out there in the universe.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'd like to have an extra $1 million from my franchise too. How about that? Let's see how that works out.
Number 4 here. There's expectations now. You touched on it. Deshaun Watson. They're wrapping up the interview with the league. Mm-hmm. There are expectations that he's at least going to miss a couple of games this year, right? So Ian Rappaport is suggesting that Baker could start Week 1 for the Browns. Pump the brakes or not on that even being a possibility?
Pump the brakes. That's such a bad idea. You talk about a guy that is not going to want to be there. Can you imagine Baker Mayfield all of training camp in Cleveland? A guy that he knows he's supposed to be a number 1 quarterback somewhere, but he's stuck behind a guy that they gave a record guaranteed money contract to. They've told you in every single way they don't want you, and yet they hold on to you because you can help them. That's not a recipe for goodwill and a guy that's going to keep the peace. Baker Mayfield's already that kind of guy. He's a little fiery, so I don't see that going well at all.
Grose?
No, it can't. It can't happen.
See, I kind of see it in a different way. So
the Cleveland Browns can do it. They can make him stay.
Yeah, no, they
because he's under contract.
But if you're Baker Mayfield, you have to know what your market is right now. Your market ain't nothing, or you wouldn't be there right now. Because let's not forget, if I trade for a Baker Mayfield, the majority of that money is being paid to him by the Cleveland Browns.
Already.
It is not. It is. If I trade and bring Baker Mayfield to my team, it is a very, very minimal risk, and nobody has made that move yet. Nobody has gone out of their way to go get him.
The 5th-year option, the team would be on the hook. That they're waiting for him to be released.
So I'm looking at it as Baker Mayfield, your future, if you have an opportunity, let's say the Browns do say, hey, let's try to mend this for a month. You go out there and you ball out.
No.
Prove to me why
No.
I need to come even take a flyer on
No.
you.
The only way, and I'm not saying it would happen, but the only way this even is something that you entertain if you're the Browns is if the suspension is a full year.
Yeah, you're talking or 6 to 8. That's too much. You're not overcoming that. You're not overcoming 6 to 8.
Okay, so what? Okay, so say it's 6 games.
Okay.
And you keep Baker Mayfield. What are you going to do week 7 through 17?
Trade him.
Or 18?
You trade him.
Who is going to take Baker Mayfield now?
If he balled out, you trade him. If he
You're
doesn't,
still going to be on the hook for the majority of that money.
you are anyway, aren't you?
No, I'm saying.
Come June 1, right?
No, if you are the Cleveland Browns are on the hook right now
Yes.
for that 18 or 19 million
Yeah, the fifth-year option. Right.
whatever.
Right.
The teams that trade for him would have to take that on. They'd have to eat that. They don't want to do that for Baker Mayfield. They don't want to have to pay him $18 million to be a gap stop for whoever they want next year. Mm-hmm. Why would you do that? Why would you let the Browns off the hook for their mistake?
It's such an interesting situation. It's something we've never seen a situation like this with starting quarterbacks in the National Football League. It's so unique.
You've got that one, which has got a component that we've talked about, and then you've got San Francisco still.
Right,
sitting
Jimmy
out
G.
there.
There's other people right now are suggesting from the Bay Area that as soon as he's clear to play, if a trade doesn't materialize, he will ask the 49ers for an outright release. Like, he's not going to be the starting quarterback for the 49ers in any capacity next year.
Listen, they would not have kept him around if they thought that Trey Lance was that guy.
I agree.
Cut him loose with an injury settlement and go.
Yep.
Listen, that there is some nervousness going on that in so many ways they're kind of letting you know by the fact that Jimmy G is still on the roster that wait a minute now, we're not as solidified as we thought we were. You're talking about a guy that has gotten you to 2 NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl. You're just going to let that guy walk out of the door and not know what you got in a rookie quarterback that hadn't really had a lot of reps, and what we saw him do against the Cardinals, it wasn't great.
He's one deep ball away from winning a Super Bowl.
That's what I'm saying. If he completes that ball, and to me, Kyle Shanahan was done the minute he let that ball go out of his hands. Because you saw him running
dialed it up.
He knew he had them right where he wanted, and he blew that ball. Bam. He blew it.
Yeah, I agree. Baker Mayfield conversation just spiraled into a 49er conversation. All right, real quick so we can get to dad jokes. Wedding season is upon us. Woo. Right? So here is a list from a poll of the 7 worst things you can do in a best man speech.
Oh.
And I want to know if any of these happened at either of yours, because still dodge that bullet.
Yeah.
Number 1, bringing up the groom's exes even for a great joke or anecdote.
No.
That happened at either one of yours?
No.
No? Have you guys ever been a best man and had to do the speech yourself?
Yes.
Yep.
Did you do that?
No.
Okay, good for you. Focusing too much on yourself.
No.
No.
Not about you, right? All right, good. Not mentioning the bride enough or at all. He's focused on your boy.
It's not really his job to talk about it.
It's not. Yeah, right.
Best man.
Best man, talking about my man.
Talking about the man.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Lucky to have him.
She gets the rest of the day. He can get 5 minutes.
Yeah. So number 4, deciding not to prep a speech and just winging it. So I've been the best man too, and I did that.
You winged
it? It was
it?
my brother, and so it was easy. But you guys, did you have it written out?
No, I never read anything out. I never read out a speech.
I like that.
I didn't have nothing written.
See? Absolutely.
I don't know how good it was either, but
I'm better when I freestyle. I'm sorry.
Taking too long is another one. Telling an unflattering story about the groom he probably never wants his family to know about. That's probably not a good idea.
That's horrible.
remember that one time?
But you know what the worst thing that's not on that list, and it may be somewhere down further, but it should be number 1? Confessing your love to the actual bride.
Whoa.
As the best man?
That's happened.
Stop it.
Yeah, that's
Whoa.
happened.
During the speech.
During the speech.
So, okay,
Whoa.
hang on a second. There's a lot wrong. Hang on, I'm going to hit one of these.
Hold up.
Because
Wait.
tell me what wedding you've been to where you didn't have an opportunity to do that before it was actually a done deal, right? 9 times out of 10, you're going to get, if anybody here has any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage.
No, you don't do that.
I love her.
You do it there. You don't do it at the speech.
No, you don't do that. You know how much money goes into those weddings? And to not have that finished off like that?
Well, what's going to happen once you do it at the speech?
Well, I tell you what, the guy actually got the girl. They wound up.
Stop.
Yeah, saw it online.
I'm finding this one.
Yeah.
The last one is drinking too much before your speech. You guys do a little boozing before you do the speech? I have it. I was fine.
I mean, I did a drink. I didn't do multiple drinks, but
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, I nailed it.
Yeah. I mean, I could go off the top of
The
the dome.
old school style?
Yeah, I nailed it.
Old school?
Give me a beat.
Yeah, I nailed it.
I need a beat.
Anyway, that's today's Pump the Brakes.
Here we go.
So, let me flip pages here for our sound effects. It is that time. It is time for B-Train's Dad Joke of the Week. If you're new to the program, no matter what, he's going to get one of these. Now, it may land and be a solid dad joke. It may be above and beyond, and we're all going to tell our friends if that's the case, he gets one of these. There's also that chance where it just does not land. It has happened before. We got to hit him with one of those. By the way, I need to hit myself with one of those because everybody here in Arizona, if you're listening to the show here, knows that the US 60 is closed, and I decided to take the US 60 to get here at train station and cost us 40 minutes of time.
Yeah, been closed for like 10, 12 days.
It has been, yeah. So
You're
tell
late?
me. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, B-Train, take it away.
All right, here we go, fellas. Where do rainbows go when they're bad?
Where do they go, B-Train?
Where?
They go to prism. It's a light sentence.
Ah, I like it. I hit the button too soon.
He was about ready to hit you until you dropped in that last
I was like, they go to prison. Okay, all right. That was good.
prism.
That was good.
Prism.
I got it. I got it.
Prism.
I got it.
Prism.
I know, which is why damn near got the green button. Until he came with the last line.
Prism. It reflects.
I get it. I get it, Grose.
Yeah. That's all.
All right. Next week, we're taking the show to the Bahamas.
Let's do it.
Hey, let's do it. I'm doing the dolphin. I'm swimming with the dolphins, though.
Going to the Bahamas, and to which
I'm doing that too.
Are we staying in Atlantis?
wherever. Are you okay with that? Yeah, I'm okay.
But you know you're going to hear that from Karen, though. You know.
I'm okay.
I just find it funny how.
I just find it we never go.
God.
Yeah.
find it funny how I always wanted to go to.
But when your
Atlanta.
friends ask, it's not.
I mean, Bertrand and
listen,
Sean.
to all those fellas out there that are listening right there, when the girl says, "I find it funny how," just run.
Or if the
don't-
arms get folded and the foot starts to tap.
No.
you're in
I just
trouble.
find it funny how, or fine.
I'm
Just
okay.
run.
I'm
Just
okay.
run.
I'm okay.
Yeah, just run.
Don't forget, follow us on Twitter at Train and Grose. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and subscribe on YouTube. We'll see you next time.
We'll holla.